Hey everybody, I'm here with a quick video on Tony Buzbee and Jay-Z. You know what? Tony Buzbee, I think, is in a whole lot of trouble. He's trying to get the defamation case that Jay-Z has against him tossed out of court. He's 10 toes down that Jay-Z's team made a deal with his team that if they backed away from the lawsuit against Jay-Z, Jay-Z would then in turn back away from the sanctions and the defamation lawsuit against him. Jay-Z team said that Tony Buzbee is a straight liar. And Tony Buzbee team is trying to say that Jay-Z and his team, they're the liars. This is a whole hot mess. One thing I could say for sure, Tony Buzbee had no clue, no idea that when he was coming for Jay-Z, that he was asking for a whole lot of problems that he was not going to be ready for. Let me go ahead and share screen so we could get more into this story. So Tony Buzbee won Jay-Z lawsuit against him, tossed, claims they made a deal. Tony Buzbee has taken legal steps to try to dismiss a Jay-Z lawsuit against him, claiming they struck a deal and Jay reneged. But Jay's camp says Buzbee is full of it. Buzbee, the Texas lawyer famous for representing 120 alleged Diddy victims, filed new legal docs Monday to dismiss the defamation lawsuit Jay-Z filed against him in Alabama. Let me go ahead. Let's take a listen.
This is crazy. But Tony Buzbee, who has filed a gazillion lawsuits against Diddy, not related to the criminal case, but filed all sorts of lawsuits. There have been a lot of issues surrounding him with, in particular, one woman who made a claim both against Jay-Z and Diddy,
exactly,
who then dropped the claim, and Jay-Z is now suing that woman and Tony Buzbee for defamation. Well, Tony Buzbee says, you have no right to sue me. He has gone to court saying, Judge, dismiss this lawsuit against me because we had a deal, comma, bro, exclamation point.
Just to be clear, the bro is not a quote from the lawsuit, but it is the tone of what Tony Buzbee is saying in these documents. He's saying that, when they agreed to drop, well, I shouldn't even use the word agreement. Well, that is the issue here, is that Tony Buzbee is saying he and Jay-Z and Jay-Z's lawyer, Alex Spiro, had an agreement. And that agreement was that Tony Buzbee and the Jane Doe accuser were going to go into court and dismiss that lawsuit. And in exchange, that's the way he makes it seem in these documents, in exchange, Jay-Z would have his investigators back off the Jane Doe accuser. In these documents, they say that days after the lawsuit was dropped, investigators showed up at this woman's house.
Okay, so stop for a second. So explain this to me. I just heard what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Where in this agreement did it say that Jay-Z's not going to sue Tony Buzbee for defamation?
Yeah, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. And by the way, they're saying there was an agreement. To be fair, Jay-Z's side is saying there was
no
never
agreement.
an agreement.
But let's assume for a second there actually was. Let's say there was, even though Jay-Z's team is saying BS. Let's say there was. Where does Tony Buzbee have a right to dismiss the defamation lawsuit because private investigators continued on the hunt for what they say is the truth involving the woman?
Right.
He may have a countersuit, but if there were an agreement.
Grounds for dismissal.
It's not a grounds for dismissal.
We should say there are a couple of other things he put in there for the grounds of dismissal, which he says they sued in the wrong court.
Okay, well, that's a whole other thing. If they sued in the wrong court, they just refile in the right court.
Well, and this is not a straight up breach of contract kind of, you have to dismiss because that's what our contract said, but he is pointing out that there was this agreement. Now,
what
Jay-Z's
agreement?
Lawyer,
what agreement?
I will explain. Jay-Z's lawyer describes this very differently. He says, look, I got a call from Tony Buzbee's lawyer who said he wanted to negotiate a dismissal. And I told him in no uncertain terms that Jay-Z would not negotiate any sort of settlement about this. However, that lawyer said, okay, we'll voluntarily dismiss the suit. And, then your sanctions motion against us for all this bad behavior should kind of go away as well. He thinks that's what the agreement was, that you would walk away from trying to get sanctions against us. Whereas Jay-Z's lawyer says, look, our sanctions motion.
Hey, Derek, is that in his head? Is that in his head? Or, my understanding is usually if you really had an agreement, you put it in writing and you sign it.
And that they when they filed the dismissal,
here's the paperwork. Your Honor, here's the paperwork.
It is certainly not a negotiated settlement like that. There is no contractual deal that we can look at this paperwork. There's a series of phone calls and maybe emails, it sounds like.
What fakakta situation is it where a lawyer says, you're not going to sue me, but we're not going to really put it in writing? Huh?
This is
not the way lawyers do deals. You're right about that. To rely on a couple of phone calls and handshakes, that's not the way lawyers do things. We write it down so that we can look to it and say you breached it down the road. So you're right. This is very loose and informal. If you really wanted to rely on that, probably should have gotten it in writing.
Well, and he's not even saying you agreed not to sue us. He never, I mean, if he's going to make the argument that there's an agreement, the agreement has to be you agreed not to sue us for filing the lawsuit in the first place.
You're right. Although the spirit of the deal, according to that guy, was you drop it and you leave us alone.
Spirit. That law doesn't work that way with spirit. You know that, Derek.
Is it also, can I just ask you guys, as attorneys, I'll ask you, is it weird for an attorney like Tony Buzbee to try to broker something with Jay-Z where Tony Busbee's client is going to drop her lawsuit and Tony Buzbee is going to get some benefit from it?
Not weird. I mean, this happens all the time.
But
where there's
why would Tony Buzbee get some? Why should he benefit from
malicious? Because the argument is malicious prosecution, and that's what Jay-Z said from the jump in this case.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, lawyers do this a lot, where lawyers will say, look, let's have a mutual dismissal and we agree not to go after the other party in the future. They've done, I mean, that's not uncommon. It's just, that's not this case.
My point is that it's almost like Tony Buzbee, according to Jay-Z's side, was using his client in order to get some benefit for himself, which is, don't go after me in court and my client will drop her suit.
Well, no. It could be, look, I mean, here's the way it could have worked. That Tony Buzbee could have said to Jay-Z's lawyer, look, we're going to have we will dismiss with prejudice, but you agree not to file a malicious prosecution lawsuit because that could be against the lawyer and the client. So agreed not to file against either of us, and we'll go about our merry way.
But that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
And Jay-Z's side says there was no deal whatsoever. Just to be clear, Jay-Z says he did not settle this at all. He did not pay 1 cent to that Jane Doe accuser.
Never made an agreement with him.
And never made an agreement.
And even if there was this agreement, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to get dismissed.
Hi, my name is Kyra, and I'm from Columbus. I think that Tony Buzbee is probably doing what my mother used to say, writing a check you can't cash. This is a game you don't want to play with somebody who has endless amounts of resources. And when you're coming with these type of very damaging claims, you have to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And he should know that as a lawyer. So good luck, Tony, but it sounds like you might be getting sued, brother.
Yeah.
See ya.
Well, he's getting sued.
He's already getting sued. He's not getting out of it.
He's not getting out of it for this.
Ooh, Tony, he wrote a check his butt couldn't cash. So Tony was representing the Jane Doe who claimed Jay-Z and Diddy R'd her in New York back in 2000. She ultimately dropped the R lawsuit, and Jay-Z then sued her and Buzbee in Alabama, where she lives, over bringing the case in the first place. In the docs obtained by TMZ, Buzbee claimed Jay used his fame and fortune to bully his accuser into changing her tune and dropping her R lawsuit. Buzbee argues Jay-Z is suing him in the wrong court and failed to lay out a legal basis for the suit. And he also claims there was some sort of agreement. So, I mean, is it just that it's in the wrong court, or do you want to argue that there was an agreement? In the docs, Buzbee says eventually the relentless pressure that Mr. Carter and his associates placed upon Doe became too much for her. On February the 4th, 2025, an agreement to resolve the litigation was reached between Doe and Mr. Carter through their attorneys, which included the voluntary dismissal of the Southern District of New York action. But Jay-Z's camp says Tony is living in fantasy land when he suggests they reached an agreement. Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiral, tells TMZ, total lie. He brought a forced case, lost badly, and was forced to dismiss quickly. End of story. Tony Buzbee's lawyer, Mark, tells TMZ, Spiral's statement that there was no agreement is a total fabrication. There was an exchange of emails between me and Spiral, which set forth the agreement very clearly. As part of that agreement, Spiral agreed to withdraw the Rule 11 motions of sanctions that he had brought against Mr. Buzbee's law firm. The lawyer continued, we agreed to withdraw the lawsuit that Jane Doe had brought against Jay-Z and Mr. Combs, even though Jane Doe continued to maintain that the allegations in the lawsuit were true. And Jay-Z and Spiral agreed not to send any more people to harass and intimidate Jane Doe and her family. 1 week later, Jay-Z and his lawyer breached the agreement flagrantly by sending supposed investigators to harass and intimidate Jane Doe in her family. Spiral has acknowledged in court docs that the lawyer did reach out to him about dismissing the Jane Doe suit against Jay, and says he told him Jay would never settle the lawsuit or pay any money to resolve it, given it was a heinous false accusation. Listen, Jay-Z said from the beginning, you will not get one red penny from me. Spiral and the lawyer did request they stop investigating Buzbee's law firm, but the lawyer says, claiming there was an explicit agreement to back off Jane Doe is not true. Fact is, the Jane Doe filed to dismiss her case with prejudice, meaning it can't be refiled, and in that filing, there's no mention of any agreement with Jay-Z. All I can say is, Tony, you got yourself in this, and I don't know how you're going to get yourself out, because Jay-Z means business, and I really don't think it's about the money. It's about him making a point at this point. Listen, guys, chat with me in the comments, and when I get an opportunity, I will chat back. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that every time I upload a video, you will be notified. If you are a subscriber, welcome back. Everybody, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Chat with me. I'll chat back. This is a whole hot mess. You know, they said there's 3 sides to every story. It's that side, it's the other side, and somewhere in the middle lies the truth. Listen, I don't know what the truth is from not the truth in this particular case, but I do know this. Tony messed up, and now he's in trouble. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit the like button. I'll see you in the next video.